Robert Plank Show, episode 224. Cover your assets online. Avoid common legal traps and pitfalls with Lynn Eleoff. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show, where we talk about being an entrepreneur, building an online business, making money, and all that entails. We're joined today by Lynn Eleoff, and she's an internet business lawyer whose mission is to show business owners like us how to cover our assets online without having to spend a lot of money on legal fees. And as the founder of CoverYourAssetsOnline.com, Lynn has created a do-it-yourself legal toolkit so that entrepreneurs can protect not only their business assets, but their homes, cars, and investments. And she says that one of the worst things we tell ourselves is, it'll never happen to me. And that's not true, because the smaller the business, the bigger the risk. And let's face it, no one ever wants to hear the words, "you've been served." So make sure you pay extra close attention to today's episode. Lynn, how are things today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Robert. I really appreciate it, and I think your audience is going to love what we're talking about today. Even though it's legal stuff, some of it's pretty interesting and eye-opening.
Okay, and I think that'll be awesome, because I think that I know that whenever any kind of the too businessy stuff sort of comes into play, like anything that's not like my skill, right? Anything that's not like websites or programming for me, or other people might be like graphic artists or things like that. And then when it gets into more of like the businessy stuff, like some people are kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to get too businessy. So I mean, just right off the bat, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And I mean, what could you say to people to make sure that they pay attention today to some of this legal stuff, and that they also enjoy and have fun listening to all this?
Well, that's such a good question, Robert, because here's the thing. We go into business and we think it's going to be great, it's going to be fun, we're going to, make all this money, and it's going to be, we don't have to work 9 to 5. And then when we get into it, it's a totally different story, right? Like, there is work to be done. And I think one of the biggest things that our businesses can teach us is responsibility. I mean, if we're going to go into business for ourselves, we have to accept the responsibility that goes with that. I mean, there's so much good that is in having your own business. But again, it's like raising a child. I mean, you must take care of your baby. And I think of my business as my baby, and it gives me so many opportunities to learn and grow. But if you're not growing, your business won't grow. So taking responsibility is part of that growing process. It's like, yeah, this is my business, and there are some steps that, although it may sound boring at first, and I wish I didn't have to do it, the responsible thing is to get it done and to protect your assets. And your assets are, all the intellectual property that goes with your business, but also your personal assets, your home, your car, your college fund, your investments, all of that are at risk if you don't take steps to protect it. I think the biggest problem is we don't know what we don't know until someone tells us about it. So I'm kind of here to tell you that you need to pay attention. You need to cover up, because the last thing you want is to run into legal problems down the road because you weren't paying attention, or you just wanted to keep your head in the sand.
So stop the problem before it becomes a real problem, right?
Well, it's not a problem, right? It's just stuff that you need to do. It's like, you get insurance for your car. So we want to protect your business, and when we protect your business, we protect you and all your other assets. So it's a smart move, and there are so many legal traps out there that people can fall into. For example, using images online. We think that, if it's on Google, we can use it. And that is absolutely not the case. And so many people are receiving letters in the mail that say, you owe us tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, I've had people tell me, I wish I had known sooner, because I just got served with a letter that says I owe $10,000 for the unauthorized use of images. And it's scary. I mean, all of a sudden you have to pay all this money. You had no idea you were even doing anything wrong.
So with all these, all these unknown unknowns out there, with all these like possible threats, I mean, where should someone start? Where should someone be looking at, like, because it just sounds like, and when I've heard of different lawyers say things like, you might get sued for this, or you might be doing this wrong. I mean, where should people look first, and like, where's the low hanging fruit so they can sort of start to make sense of all this?
Well, I think the lowest hanging fruit is a website like mine. It's coveryourassetsonline.com. Thank you for mentioning that. But on that, I give a lot of free information. It's like I tell you what, for example, how to use images responsibly online so you don't get sued. I tell you what legal documents you have to have on your website so that you don't run into any legal hot water. Like, you need a privacy policy. That is by law required, and if you're doing business in California or you're based in California, that's one of the strictest laws in the land as far as privacy policy requirements, because the privacy policy is there to protect the consumer. Those are the people that come to your website. So if you are collecting emails and nothing else, if you just collect emails, you need to have a privacy policy on your site. That's there to protect people who come to your website. But the other documents, like a terms and conditions or a disclaimer, that's there to protect you so that people don't come to your site with expectations that are unrealistic and then claim that you did something to harm them. When you've got these things in place that disclaim your liability and put the responsibility back on the person who is visiting your website or reading your content or taking your courses, then you're protecting yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I have privacy policies and things like that on my web pages, and I've seen them, and I didn't really give those much thought other than, I heard this was a thing I had to have on my website. I heard that, Google was going to start penalizing people for not having that. And so just to make sure that I understand you and that everyone listening understands you, so there's these these web pages with all this legalese. Like, there's the privacy policy you said, there's the terms and conditions you said, there's the disclaimer. So if someone's listening today and they say, okay, well, I need to have these things on my websites, what should they do? Where should they go and grab those? And what kind? So they should be looking for those three things. Is that right? Those three templates?
Well, those three things to start. And here's the thing. If you have them on your website and you don't know how they got there, then you need to do some research, because I have reviewed some people's websites with their privacy policy, for example, and it was the wrong information. It was even the wrong name of the company. Sometimes a web designer will slap up a privacy policy on your site, and it doesn't reference your business anywhere. They sort of cut and pasted it from another site. That happens all the time. So you do not want to leave that job to a web designer or a developer or anything like that. You don't want to cut and paste or borrow. You want to proactively seek out a privacy policy that is tailored to your business and your website. Same with terms and conditions and disclaimers. And so my position is, people don't want to hire lawyers, and I totally get that, and it can be so expensive. So I created a do-it-yourself toolkit whereby people can create, I've got all the instructions, checklist, templates, and it's kind of like a fill in the blanks following my instruction. So it really reduces the cost of doing this yourself, and it makes you feel kind of empowered because you've taken some steps, taken the responsibility to protect what is legally yours.
That makes a lot of sense, and so you mentioned this toolkit and stuff, and so is this toolkit we're talking about? I'm at coveryourassetsonline.com, and at the top there's a link to a DIY legal toolkit. Is that the toolkit that we're talking about right now?
Yes, that's the one. So I created this because people were saying, "Oh, I don't want to have to deal with that stuff. I know it's important, but I don't have enough money right now to spend on a lawyer, and it could cost thousands of dollars, admittedly." So I think of myself as a new breed of lawyer. I'm not into, that almighty billable hour and charging clients thousands of dollars. Instead, what I created was this toolkit. It's like $400, and everything is in there. All the documents. There are so many other things in there, such as a client services agreement, for example, disclaimers, all the things that you need to run your business on a daily basis. It's all in there for the price of maybe 1 hour with an attorney.
Awesome. And so so you have that toolkit, and so people should so one reason out of many of reasons why people should grab that toolkit is because you have these legal documents, privacy policy, terms and conditions, disclaimer, and so people should have these on their web pages. And I mean, is there really anything else more than that as far as that subtopic of those documents? So people should grab your toolkit, and that way they're getting the right templates and put them on their web pages. And is that pretty much it, just as far as that area is concerned?
There's a lot more in there. We talk about images and how to use them online, where you can get images.
Right. But I was just asking, like, as far as those documents we talked about, you get your toolkit, you put those
Yep.
documents on there, and then move on to images and things like that. Is that
Yes,
about right?
that's correct.
Cool.
Yes.
So then I didn't mean to interrupt you too much there, but then something else that has come up a little bit as far as like the low-hanging fruit there is people should then use your toolkit to make sure they're not using the wrong images. So can you tell us about that? Or I guess you were going to.
Exactly. There is a right and a wrong way to use images, and I go through all of that, and I explain what it means what royalty-free images actually means. A lot of people think that if an image is royalty-free, that means they're free to use it, but it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that you don't have to pay royalties on that image once you buy the license. So it's like you buy an image once, whatever that may cost, and then the terms are that you're able to use it over and over again. But you always want to read the terms of any image that you are going to use. And if you're not sure, then do not use it, because there are people that are just, I think it's like a little sub-business now where people are just looking for opportunities where they can go after entrepreneurs who are doing business online, sending them these letters. And half the time, I even wonder if they're valid. So if you were to ever get a letter like that in the mail that says you owe money, you want to make sure that they actually are the rightful owner of the image, and you want to ask them to prove it to you, and all of that. So you're not just handing over money. And I've seen people do that. They'll pay thousands of dollars just because they received this letter. And I don't even know if that person who sent the letter was actually the owner, the rightful legal owner of the images they claimed were being used without authorization.
Jeez, I mean, crazy. I had no idea, and
I know, right?
right, and so a few interesting things there. One is that royalty free doesn't mean that it's public domain or that it's freeware. It means that you buy the license and then you don't have to pay royalties every single time. So a lot of people might be thinking royalty free means it's free and I can just steal it, but not the case. And then also, this is very interesting that some people are just going out there and just blasting out these scary legal letters, even if the people receiving the letters aren't doing anything wrong, or maybe even if the person sending the letter isn't even the owner of that intellectual property. They're just casting this huge wide net, hoping that some people will just pay the money to get it to go away.
Well, and you're not surprised, right, Robert? There's so many scammy things that are going on with the internet and all of that. So that's why I want to teach people, like, to be careful and to really know what you're up against, and then know when you can actually stand your ground and say, no, this is mine. I obtained this legally. Or if you're wrong and you actually did use an image that you weren't authorized to use, make sure that the person claiming that you owe them money is actually the person that owns that image. Otherwise, you could pay them, and then down the line, the real owner comes along and demands money from you, and you are so out of luck at that point.
You have to double pay.
Yeah, exactly.
So what should someone do with this sort of information? Like, they should they be like going back and looking at the images they have, or should they be more careful with the images they have? Like, I mean, I don't want to give away like too many of the secrets in your toolkit or anything like that. But like, I mean, are there just like a handful of like things people should know when dealing with the images on their websites?
Well, I'm going to tell you a story. There's a woman, a doctor, who decided to take her her business online, or she wanted to start a business online. So she hired a web designer who built a beautiful website for her, and everything was set up. She pressed the go button, and she was online with this beautiful program, and all of a sudden she received that letter in the mail that said that she owed $16,000 for the unauthorized use of images, or I don't know if it was one or a couple of images, but she had used those images were actually on her website, and she was using them without authorization, but she had no idea because her web designer had put them up there. But she was still responsible. So, yes, I think it's really important that you go back and look at the images that are on your site, whether you put them there, unknowingly, or if someone else uploaded them for you. It is your website, and therefore your responsibility. And yes, you are vulnerable. You're exposed, as I like to call it, or don't like to call it, because you don't know what's on your website. I say the easiest, simplest way. If you don't have your own images and you don't know where to start, then create your own or take your own images. Use your own. That's the safest bet. And then from there, if you don't want to buy images, then make sure that the images you're using have what's called a zero commons license. That means that you can use them and there are no terms, there's nothing you have to comply with, you're just able to use them. And there are some websites that have those types of images for you to use. But again, if you find an image, just read the fine print and make sure, double check that image has a zero Creative Commons license, and that you're free to use it.
Okay, that's good to know, and that is kind of a scary. There's a few scary things in there, because like I've seen some other people who make websites. They'll just do a Google image search. If they want to have a picture of an airplane, they'll just search that in Google Images,
Yep.
and they'll grab it from wherever. And I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking, I think that's kind of scary. And so, like, if I need to have a like a stock photo or some kind of graphic, what I've done in the past is I've gone to Flickr.com, and I've like filtered things down, and I filtered down to, like, I guess you can like narrow down the images to like the Creative Commons license images that are like free to use for commercial use and no attribution required. So I mean, am I doing it the right way by doing it that, or is there something else I should be looking for?
Well, you want to look for zero Creative Commons. That means you're off the hook for everything, and you can use that image any way you want without attribution. Here's the thing, too. Some people will use images and think, well, I'll just give attribution and that will take care of it. But it doesn't. It means nothing, because if the owner of any intellectual property, whether it's an image or a book or an excerpt or copy, it is the owner's right to be able to say whether anyone else can use it on their website or in any way. So you just don't ever want to assume that, oh, I'll just give attribution, or no one will see me, no one will find out. I mean, it's a scary game to play.
But it's good to know some of those sort of gotchas. So really good to know that you should be looking for a zero Creative Commons license, and just linking to it or just having that attribution there is not enough. And so I mean, it sounds like people might easily be accidentally exposing themselves, as you say, to this sort of attack, especially if like they have a designer or they have someone else writing content for them. So it might happen to some of us, and you said that. So then what happens is someone gets a scary legal letter in the mail. So what should someone do if they get one of those scary letters?
So if you get a letter like that in the mail, you want to practice due diligence and don't just pay it. You want to find out, like, who is sending this to you. You want to find out how legit it actually is. And at that point, unfortunately, you may have to hire a lawyer, but the last thing you want to do is just take it at face value and pay it. You want to find out, even if you have used the image and you realize, oh, no, I've made a mistake here, I shouldn't have done it, then, there's room for some negotiation. So don't just pay it. Do some homework, and then find out whether you need to have a lawyer if they're claiming you owe them thousands and thousands of dollars, or whether you can just handle it quietly on the side.
Okay, good to know. So don't be one of those other stories that you mentioned where some people just panic and just pay it. Actually, look at if if it actually applies, look at if the person is the copyright owner, all that good stuff.
Exactly, and if you pay, you want to have proof that you paid and that you're off the hook and will never have to pay again, right? You probably have to take the image down, but you don't want them to keep coming back at you. So, I mean, that's why, I really want to help people do things right so that they don't get into this hot water and then have to hire a lawyer to get them out of trouble. But if you do, then, unfortunately, then you're going to have to hire a lawyer, and that's when it can get expensive. That's why I'm saying, there's so much you can do up front to prevent having to go through that sort of thing.
And that makes a lot of sense. And even if it does come to that, even if you do have to shell out the big bucks and hire a lawyer, it sounds like it's good to know enough. It's good to be educated going in. That way you kind of know what you need to know with the lawyer.
Well, and that's a really good point, Robert, because in the toolkit, one of the things that I say is, you can hire a lawyer, but you should know what you're doing up front. So, for example, say you want to draw up a contract and you want to hire a lawyer, but you use my toolkit first to draw up a draft of the contract. You put everything in there that you know is going to be pertinent. Now, when you take that to a lawyer, you can say, all right, here's the contract. Please tell me where there are any holes or what else I need to do. But you've done a lot of the legwork and probably shaved many hours, billable hours, off the fee that you would have to pay. So, yeah, you should know. There's so much that you can know up front. And this isn't really hard legal stuff to understand. It's very understandable and clearly laid out. And, if I may say, kind of fun sometimes.
Kind of fun to solve that problem, right? And I think that
Yeah.
that's sort of what I'm hearing from you is that, like the big question at the beginning was, well, if we're a specialist in some kind of area, right? Some people like to, write books, or some people like to make cool videos or stuff like that, and they say, well, the legal thing, I don't know about that, but it's almost like, in whatever niche we're in, we kind of like to have this really big problem in front of us and kind of tackle it and come out the other end. And so this sounds like another way of doing that. Like, hopefully a situation we won't find ourselves in, but if there's this huge scary problem, at least we have some of these tools and we can sort of solve it in different ways, right? Like, and so am I sort of understanding this right, in that people can kind of be as hands-on or not as hands-on as they want? Like, they can have these templates or these tools that you give people, and if they want to handle a bunch of it themselves, they can. Or if they want to just have these to know what the lawyer makes, they can. Or they can kind of do it the middle ground, like you said, where you kind of have a draft and you have the lawyer clean it up. So is that right? Like, can people sort of do this as much or as little as they want to?
Absolutely. I mean, there are options. The thing is, when you don't know what you don't know, you aren't even aware of what your options are. And, I think that this legal stuff where people's eyes start to glaze over and they go, oh no, I can't handle it. But here's the thing, you're an entrepreneur and you're smart and you can figure this out. This isn't something that you can't handle or that you can't understand. And when you have someone like me who's sort of explaining it in non-legalese, it's like plain English legal, you can understand it and you go, oh, okay, I get it. And then I can do this, and you'll be amazed at how much you can actually do yourself. I'm not teaching you how to go into court and fight, a legal battle or anything like that. I'm just showing you, like, these are the things that you need to have in place. This is what it looks like, and this is how you tailor it for your business or for your website. It really is quite simple, and when you have questions that sort of go beyond what is in the toolkit, because you have a very complicated business, for example, or you've got someone who's kind of breathing down your neck saying that you owe them money or you've done something to take their property, their intellectual property, then you can go to a lawyer and ask the right questions, because you will have all the information and therefore your options in front of you.
Awesome. I mean, that's a pretty good outlook there, that you have the information so that you can ask the right questions when you need to. And so sort of as we're winding down our discussion today, we mentioned so far that you have these legal documents in your toolkit. You have the things people need to know about the images on their websites. Like, what other things are in this toolkit that people need to know about and that your toolkit will help them within their business?
So I go over things like insurance. What kind of insurance do you need? I go over your business entity. Are you a sole prop, an LLC, or an S corp? And or if you are a sole proprietor, is it time to break up with your sole prop and become an LLC? And I sort of break it down, all the steps of what you have to do to set up your own LLC. You can do it yourself. It is not that difficult. And then I provide links for each of the different states so that you click on it and it will tell you, in this state these are the requirements. But it's pretty much across the board the same, but some states may have their own little tweaks that you need to make. But again, it's not anything you can't handle. I go over Facebook or any other social media advertising and the things that you need to do and put in your ads so that you don't get shut down by Facebook or any other social media platform because you haven't, had your privacy policy put up. I'm sure you've heard of this, Robert. People's accounts are getting shut down because they haven't met Facebook guidelines for advertising. So there's just so much in there, and even if you do nothing, you'll at least have your eyes wide open to what your exposure is.
Awesome, and that's all good stuff to know about. And what I really liked about us talking today is sort of what frustrates me with talking about like the legal stuff, or sometimes I've like tuned into podcasts or looked up articles on some of the legal stuff, and sort of what usually frustrates me that we've avoided today. What usually frustrates me is like it's either too broadly focused where like you can't really like get much, or it's too narrowly focused where like it's specifically about rules in California or specifically about rules in Delaware. So I think that what I really like about the way that you sort of explained all these things in plain English is that there's like the specific stuff, but then if people need to get specific enough for their state or specific enough for their situation, then this toolkit will help them. And then if it ever comes time to make a certain decision, like you said, sole proper LLC, or if it comes time to talk to a lawyer, now the lawyer will know what we're talking about, because with all this internet stuff, I mean, who knows if we're dealing with a lawyer who is up to date on the latest Facebook stuff or the latest stuff with images and things like that. So this sounds like a really great way for people to sort of bridge the gap there. And so
you are so. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Robert. I
No,
didn't
sweat
mean
it.
to interrupt. I was just going to say that most lawyers don't know this stuff. Internet law is a whole new branch of law. There's actually no official thing called internet law. It's kind of cobbled together of all, law that is in place. So, yeah, most lawyers don't know this stuff. You need an internet law attorney, an attorney that really is familiar with how businesses are run online and the things that need to be put in place to run a business. So that's such a good point. I'm glad you said that.
Awesome, thank you. And so, where should people go right now to grab that toolkit? And are there any additional websites that you want people to be aware of yours?
So the low-hanging fruit stuff that we talked about, you can find that on my blog at coveryourassetsonline.com. You have to remember the online part. And so that's where my blog is, and you can start reading there and get some information on all, some of the things that we've talked about. And the toolkit is also accessible from there. DIYlegaltoolkit.com will actually take you there as well. And that's where I really explain everything that's in there and the benefits that you'll receive, and how much better you're going to feel once you get this part up and done and in place, and then you can carry on with all the really cool fun stuff you like to do with your business.
Get the work out of the way, and then it's time for play and making money both times. And that way people get that peace of mind. And also, from some of these scenarios you've mentioned, it sounds like the toolkit will more than pay for itself if anything goes wrong. If there's any kind of situation where they might have been shut down before, they have these tools, or if they have to go and get help, they also have these tools. So I mean, sounds like a really great resource. So everyone should go right now to coveryourassetsonline.com to check out the blog, and DIYlegaltoolkit.com to get that toolkit that has all those amazing things all in one place that every online business owner needs, every entrepreneur needs. And so thanks so much, Lynn, for stopping by the show and sharing this legal expertise, which might be kind of scary for some people, might be kind of boring for some people, but if we can find a way to make it interesting for just long enough to check it out and make sure that our assets are covered, so to speak, then sounds like a really great resource and a really great thing that everyone needs to sort of run their business through this filter and make sure that they are covered in all those bases. Because you don't want to lose your business, you don't want to owe a bunch of money, you want to keep doing what you're doing and grow things and keep having fun. And so thanks so much, Lynn, for stopping by the show and sharing all this advice with us.
You're so welcome, Robert. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Try this. Just try it, and you can say goodbye to WordPress anxiety forever. WordPress is an amazing tool for running your website, but the problem is that your site and your plugins can go out of date. Many websites are hacked every single hour due to out-of-date sites and plugins. Don't become another statistic. Do the right thing and install Website Remote on your websites. That way, your sites will never go out of date again. They'll never be broken by automatic updates, and you'll always have control over those websites in one location. Go to websiteremote.com/trial to get your access today.